Welcome back. What is the episode for this week? Today we're going to talk about something that people downplay all the time. Things that people say, yeah, I've heard of that. Birds of a feather flock together. Yeah. What's that mean? What do they say? You are the combined average of your 5 closest friends. And I think that should be revised to people are typically the combined average of the 5 people they spend the most amount of time with, okay? Because everybody influences you. They positively influence you, they negatively influence you, but if you're hanging around doctors and lawyers or school teachers or pastors at church, you're going to be influenced by the words that come out of their mouths, the things that they encourage you to do or discourage you to do, okay? So I'm going to tell you some stories. I'm going to tell you 2 stories. And I'm going to quickly try to give you some examples before I tell you the story. So typically people do associate with like-minded people. I'm going to give you an example. The military, many years ago, soldiers and sailors were allowed to take breaks, 10, 15-minute breaks if you smoked. So guess what happened? It wasn't very fair for people that didn't smoke to have to continue working, and those that did smoke could go outside and take a 10, 15-minute break. So pretty much everybody started smoking. A long time ago, this is like 30, 40 years ago, everybody in the military smoked because that's how they were entitled to breaks. That's a horrible example, but basically all of the friends smoked. You hung out with all your friends, and guess what you did? You smoked. Some people have drinking buddies. So if you're one of those people that has a drinking buddy, well, guess what you and your buddy do? You guys drink together. You go to the same bar every Friday. You go to the same club every Saturday. Then you guys hang out. You chill. You relax. You guys drink together. You know what? That's what you guys enjoy doing. So you have a buddy to go do it with. Maybe you're a gym rat. Maybe you're one of those people that goes to the gym 5 days a week. I bet you have a bunch of friends that you met at the gym that love doing what you love doing, and now you guys hang out. And all of your friends go to the gym. I love dancing. I go to the club 2-3 times a week. I have a bunch of friends that love dancing. So you see, obviously it's easy to understand that people associate with like-minded individuals. Okay? I have a family member that's an attorney, and guess what? He loves hanging out with other attorneys. It just makes sense. Okay? Artists like hanging out with friends that are artists. Musicians like, they have musician friends. All of that to say this: the people you hang out with will influence you. They'll influence you positively, they'll influence you negatively, but they are going to influence you. Deny it all you want doesn't change the fact that it's true. Now, the 2 stories that I'm going to tell you are horribly vulnerable for me. I am going to tell them to you anyways in hopes that this really inspires somebody. I don't know who it's going to inspire, but I hope somebody benefits from this. I'm going to tell you the worst story first. When I was 17, about 17 years old, this is probably back in 1997, I was hanging around with some less than desirable company, okay? I was hanging out with some people from my hood, some dudes from the hood where I lived. And I lived in North Park. And I don't know if you want to call me a wannabe or somebody that hung around with some bad dudes, but I did. And to cut it to the point, I started hanging around with these guys late at night when they were doing bad stuff, when they were up to no good, and I became a lookout. So you're hanging out with your friends, they're going to do something shady, and they go, hey, come get my back. Make sure nobody catches me. And I'm 17. I'm young and I'm dumb. I'm doing stupid things. I'm easily influenced. I'm impressionable. And at the end of the day, I became a lookout, and some of my friends were stealing car stereos. Now, that's not all they were doing, but that's the example I'm going to tell you about. Okay? Some of them were selling drugs. Some of them were doing drugs. Some of them were doing underage drinking. Some of them were, I was hanging around with some stupid people. I should have kept better company, but I didn't. So I ended up becoming a lookout. So I'm basically just keeping an eye out to make sure that nobody's coming. We're doing these car stereo thefts late at night. 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We're basically out when we shouldn't be out, which goes to prove the point. If you're out at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, you're probably up to no good. Okay, that's just what it is. It wasn't very long before I did a first car stereo. So I remember my first car stereo. It was in North Park. It was about a mile from where I lived. It was a white Ford Probe. We're talking about what? This was somewhere in like 1997. It was even an older model. So we're talking about early 90s. It was an early 90s model Ford Probe, white, 2-door. And I was in that car in less than 15 seconds. And car stereo was out. And I was gone in less than a minute and a half. And I took this car stereo home. My buddy went back to his place. I went back to my place. He knew I had the car stereo because he had helped. He was the lookout, basically. And I slept. I woke up every 30 minutes. Now, every 30 minutes I woke up and I was staring straight at this car stereo. It was sitting on my dresser in my room. Wires hanging out and everything. And I kept waking up and I kept looking at this car stereo. So I kept turning over, looking at the other wall, trying to go back to sleep. And I would wake up and I was looking at this car stereo. If you hadn't figured it out by now, I had a guilty conscience. My conscience was literally just driving me nuts. And I kept feeling bad about this. I felt bad. And I was like, no big deal, blah, blah, blah. Try to make myself feel better. Because I knew what I had done was wrong. I was raised better than that. I was acting in a way where I put my integrity, my morals, my character, my family upbringing to the side, and I was acting shameful. Hanging around with stupid people, making stupid decisions, letting stupid people influence me, and I became stupid. So better be careful who you associate with. I woke up in the morning and I knew what I wanted to do, but I couldn't do it until the next night. Now remember, there was somebody else that knew I had that car stereo. So at the end of the day, I waited all day long. At the end of the day, everybody's asleep and I'm waiting till like midnight, 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock in the morning, I threw this car stereo in my backpack and I went back to where I had ripped this car stereo out of the car. And guess what? No surprise, car wasn't there anymore. And I really needed to put this car stereo back. Now that may sound retarded to you, completely insane, but then I'd be completely insane. So I went down the street, couldn't find the white Ford Probe, so I went across the street, went back up the other side, couldn't find it, went to the street over, went down, street over, down, street over, down. Basically, I went through about six blocks until I finally found this white Ford Probe. And I looked inside, sure enough, empty spot where the car stereo used to be. This was the car that I had broken into 24 hours ago. I broke back into it, put the stereo back in, wiped everything down, locked the door, closed the door, and ran as fast as I could back to my house. And a day later, my friend hits me up and he goes, "Hey, I think I got somebody that might be interested in that car stereo. Let me come pick it up." And I was like, "I don't have the car stereo anymore." And he's like, "Okay, no sweat. How much did you get for it?" And I said, "I didn't get anything for it." And he's like, "Well, what do you mean you didn't get anything for it? You gave it away?" And I was like, "Yeah, I gave it away." And he's like, "Well, then I guess you owe me some money because obviously it makes sense that we would split some of that money. I would share with him if I sold it. Now, he started getting the idea that I didn't give it away. He got the idea that I sold it and I wanted to keep all the money for myself, so I just told him that I gave it away. Basically, he didn't believe me. So he comes over to my house. He wants to talk to me face to face. So this dude comes over to my house and he's like, "Where's car stereo?" I was like, "I gave it away." He's like, "Bullshit." I said, No. You know, I really didn't get any money for it. He's like, "Well, who'd you give it to?" So I had to tell him. I was like, "I went and I put it back." What? And this guy, he flipped his lid. He's like, "You know, I handled that car stereo. My fingerprints, you know, were all over that." And I was like, "Bro, I wiped everything down. I put it back. It's gone." For a minute, he didn't believe me. He thought that I was playing with him. He thought I was being funny. He thought I was being stupid. Who would ever go put back the item that they stole? So basically, he got mad. He got pissed and he got angry and he got aggressive. And he was like, "If you're being for real," he's like, "we can't be friends anymore." And I was like, "I'm being for real." And we stopped being friends. He took off. He left. He basically gave me a warning where he's like, "You know, just stay away from me. We're not cool. I don't trust you anymore." And he gave me, like, you know, a little warning shot, and then he took off. And that was it. That was probably an amazingly good thing that he took off, because I didn't have that influence in my life anymore. See, those particular friends were influencing me to do bad things. And I lost that small group of friends, which was great for me in the long run, because I could have graduated from car stereos to cars. I could have graduated from cars to houses. You know, we could have been breaking into houses or something. We could have been doing some really stupid stuff. But I'm thankful that I lost those friends. Sometimes you lose friends. It's actually a great thing you lost those friends. You might feel lonely for a minute. You might feel sad. You might feel like a loner. But sometimes being alone is significantly better than being surrounded by idiots, or surrounded by shady people, or surrounded by backstabbing fake friends. I'd rather have no friends than have fake friends. So that's words to the wise, right? All right. Now let me tell you the best story ever. That was the worst story. Here's the best story. When I was younger, I was raised pretty much by my grandmother. And my grandmother was trying to positively influence me. And she kept sending me to church camp every summer. Church camp is basically like 1 to 2 weeks. So if you go to church camp, you go off to camp for 1 to 2 weeks. You know, you do fishing or hiking or whatever it is, but basically it's all church-run camp. They have the counselors and the chaperones, and you do church stuff. My grandmother just wanted me to, you know, get that good stuff in my head, be surrounded by good people. I went to church camp every year, and she would not let me come back home. So when the 2-week church camp was over, she sent me to another 2-week church camp. One year, my grandmother sent me to North Carolina, and they had 3 rotations of 2-week church camp. So she sent me to North Carolina. I went to 2-week church camp. When 2 weeks was over and I thought I was coming home, she re-enrolled me for the next 2 weeks. When that church camp was over, she re-enrolled me for the next 2 weeks. It was ridiculous. I could not escape. My grandmother was trying, God bless her, was trying to keep me surrounded by good people, because I was easily received by bad people. I was young. We're talking about 12, 13, 14 years old. Basically, the last year I went to church camp, I was probably 14 years old. I was a white kid with freckles. I had red hair, like orangey red hair. I looked like Dennis the Menace. And I'm at this church camp. It's not just one church. It's like 25 churches send their youth group over. So there's like 200-300 kids. And the counselors here are going to do basically almost like a social experiment. and not a social experiment, but they're trying to prove a point. And they're saying, you know what? Jesus came here. Now, before you guys think I'm going to start preaching out the Bible, I'm not. I'm giving you the details, okay? They said Jesus came here to serve, not to be served. He didn't come here for us to worship him. He came here to save us or help us and serve us. So this was demonstrated when he washed the feet of his apostles. Now, Jesus had his students, his apostles. And back in those days, maybe the students would wash the master's feet, but the master would never wash the students' feet. And that's exactly what Jesus did. He led by example. So he told his apostles, go out into the world and serve others. So what he did to lead by example is he washed all of his apostles' feet, which is something that, you know, people just don't do. But he did it, and he did it to prove that point. So what the counselors at this camp were going to have us do is they're going to have us wash each other's feet. So they asked, 150, 250 kids inside this giant cafeteria to all pull out buckets. They had probably like 100 buckets. There's like 300 kids. So not everybody's going to get their feet washed at the same time. Basically, you're going to wash somebody's feet. They don't have to wash yours. You might wash somebody's feet. They might wash yours back. Or you might wash somebody's feet. They might go and wash somebody else's feet. That makes sense? So, I don't know what got into me. You could say it was the Holy Spirit. I was a good kid when I was 14. You could say I don't know what it was. But at the end of the day, this is what happened. I got it in my head that you could pick to wash anybody's feet you wanted. If you wanted to wash the girl you had a crush on at church camp, if you had a crush on a girl and you wanted to wash her feet, you could go wash her feet. If you had a best friend that you loved to death and you really didn't feel comfortable washing anybody else's feet, maybe wash your bro's feet. I knew whose feet I wanted to wash. There was a guy that was basically a kitchen cook. Because think about it. If we're at church camp for 2 weeks, they're going to have cooks there. They're going to have maintenance guys there. They're going to have management there. It's a camp. It runs. So they have staff there. One of their staff was this big old overgrown, I don't know, if I was 14, how big was this guy? He was probably like 350 pounds. I was probably 95 pounds, all right, 100 pounds. I was a lightweight. I was a little boy. I was a little kid, little skinny, little redheaded white kid with freckles. And I knew that in the kitchen was this big old 350 pound big old boy. And he was always in the kitchen. He always had on one of those aprons, over your neck aprons that was all dirty because he's always wiping his hands on his apron. His clothes were dirty. The guy was always sweaty because he was cooking in a hot kitchen, so he was always drenched in his own sweat. And I had seen this dude every day because you go through the kitchen line to get your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner every day. So I'd always seen this guy in the back. He was kind of quiet. He was polite. He didn't talk much, but he was very polite. I went through the kitchen doors and I grabbed him by the hand and I pulled him out, and he had no idea what we were doing. Remember, he was paid staff. He wasn't part of what was going on. So I went into the kitchen. I pulled him out. He went hesitantly, like he didn't go willingly. I basically brought this dude out, and he saw, 200-300 kids washing each other's feet. He's like, what's going on here? And my youth minister at the time, he knew what I was doing. He caught on, and he fully supported it. So I sat this dude down in a chair, and I went to untie his shoes, and he freaked. He was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? No. Leave my shoes on. And the youth minister was like, let him do this. He wants to do this. If this is in his heart, let him do this. So the guy did not feel comfortable. He's a staff member. He doesn't He has no idea what we're doing. He didn't hear the sermon before that. He doesn't know what the message is, what the point of this is. He just knows that some little white kid is trying to take off his shoes in front of 200 other people. And basically, a lot of people stopped washing feet and started watching this guy resist. So we finally, got him to relax. And I took off his shoes, and he's got big old fat feet. And he didn't take good care of himself, so his feet are all hard, and bottom of his feet are skin's cracked, and basically he had some nasty feet. And I put his feet in this bucket of hot soapy water with a wash rag, and the youth minister's explaining to this guy, Jesus came to earth to serve us, not to be served, and he led by example of washing people's feet. And so this is what we're doing. And he was like, but why, the cook is like, but why me? And they're saying, I don't know why, but this young man, this little boy, he wanted to wash your feet. He thought of you in the kitchen. He thought of you, just let him do his thing. And I'm over here washing his feet, between his toes, top of his foot, bottom of his foot. I'm washing his feet. This big old man, he's a man, he's not a boy, he's a big old man. He started crying. He started crying. And there was some powerful, powerful experience. Not just for me, mostly for that dude. And people around that were watching that realized what had happened, the profoundness of what had happened. Now, I'm not going to take credit for that. I was like 13, 14 years old. I just did what I felt was right. And maybe God used me. But how do you go from being that little boy at the age of 13 or 14 at church camp, washing people's feet? How do you go from being that little boy to being a 17 or 18-year-old prick that's ripping car stereos out of cars? That's why this story is so vulnerable to me. Because I have to tell you what a good person I was, and how quickly and how badly I became I don't want to say I wasn't a good person. I just very, very lost, okay? I was a very lost person. How do you go from that kid to that young adult? Who you associate with. If you associate with thieves, you will start stealing. If you associate with singers, you will probably start singing in the shower. If you associate with little cholos or gangbangers or wannabe thugs that do bad stuff, you are probably going to do bad stuff if you associate with them long enough. And that's my hopefully powerful, important message of the day. Now, you have a point in time where you have to make a decision on who you want to be. And I did not want to be that guy that stole car stereo. I did it once, didn't want to be that person. I went and put it back. Not everybody has a chance to put it back. Some people have done bad things and they don't have that chance to put it back. That doesn't mean that you can't change. That just means that you got to change who you associate with. If you think about it, the right type of friends would have objected to me doing what I was doing. But the wrong type of friends were actually encouraging me to do it again. Sometimes friends are not good friends. They're just friends, but they're not good friends. They're not influencing you to do something positive with your life. They're not good friends. Another thing I've heard is sometimes your friends are always happy to see you doing well, as long as you're not doing better than they are. And I can see that. I can totally see that. Sometimes friends are really happy for you when you succeed, as long as your success is not greater than theirs. Because if your success becomes greater than theirs, then they start hating on you and they start getting jealous. Those are not the type of friends you want to keep. So if your friends are encouraging you or accepting that you do bad things, you probably need to get better friends. I'm not saying that they're not real friends. Maybe they got your back. Maybe they got your back in a fight. Maybe they were there for you when you needed them. But you better be really careful who you associate with, because that can take your life in a totally different direction. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you know me personally, please don't change the way you look at me. But I made some mistakes in my life. Not proud of them. Don't even want to advertise those mistakes. But I do want to help other people. So I'm hoping that my story will help somebody else. And also, just to put this in a better topic, lighthearted topic, who would do that? Who's going to take a stolen car stereo back to the car? I would have loved to have been there when the car owner comes back to that car the next morning and looks inside the window, gets into his car, and looks over and sees the stereo that he just probably reported stolen the morning before. You get your car stereo stolen, you dial 911, you make a police report, you do an insurance claim, whatever it is, you're upset, you had a horrible day, you tell all your friends that some jerks broke into your car last night and ripped out your car stereo, and you're so upset. It's going to cost you hundreds of dollars to put it back in. You go have a horrible day. My fault, I apologize. Then the next night you go to sleep, you wake up in the morning, you go back to your car, and there it is. You're like, what just happened? Who would do that? I would love to have been there and seen the person's expression. We're like, that would have been funny. But what I did was not funny. But that would have been hilarious.